Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting of the Burnsville Planning Commission for Monday, July 22nd, 2019 to order. Welcome, everyone. Our first item is adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions from staff?
No changes.
No changes. Anything from commissioners?
No.
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, approval of the minutes from the July 8th Planning Commission meeting. Any changes from staff or commissioners on that?
No changes from staff?
Good to me. Any others? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, the second, sorry?
Yeah.
Chris, thank you.
Motion carries. That brings us quickly to item 3, which is a public hearing for Quarry Property LLC for a planned unit development amendment for interim use permit to extend the storage of cement and cement crushing operation in the Minnesota River floodplain at 1001 Black Dog Road West. Ms. Garros.
Thank you. For the members of the Planning Commission, we do have this application this evening. It is an application that was considered and approved by the city back in 2012. And at that point in time, there was consideration that they may come back to extend that. So their first time frame ended, if you will, and they would like to continue. So they have requested this application. And it is a planned unit development amendment allowing an interim use permit. And this is basically to extend the time frame to do cement crushing and then also storage of cement materials at their property, which is down by the Minnesota River. The subject site is shown on the left, and the property is owned by Quarry Properties LLC, and they have the representatives are here this evening if you have questions. And basically on the site to the right, the pictometry, you can see that primarily the quarrying activities occur in the southern part of the site. This at one time was a quarry, so it does sit below the surrounding property. If you saw in the attachments, the information that was done back in 2012, there were some comments from the city of Bloomington, and those items were incorporated into the conditions of approval back in 2012. And we did notify the city of Bloomington again. There are no properties within 350 feet of the site, actually in the city of Bloomington, residential properties, etc. But we've had no comments back or received nothing in terms of public feedback regarding the application. So basically what we are looking at is this is the same graphic that was provided in the past. The site is accessed coming off of Black Dog Road, and then back through here there are some internal driveways that get to the site, which is in this location here. This bigger site just to the east is the where the I just forgot the name of it, where the amphitheater was proposed, and it is also known as the freeway landfill site, or part of it is. And the quarry, Kramer Quarry, is to the south, and then additional property that's owned by Kramer Quarry abuts the site to the west. So the application is to continue their operation. We do not have anything on file in terms of any complaints or issues with the application. It is within the Minnesota River floodway. There are very few uses that can occur within the floodplain or floodway. This is one of them, and they do have a plan on file in order to address if there is flooding where they can remove the materials within a period of time. There are no issues. We did notify the Department of Natural Resources. They did not provide any feedback comments, meaning that they do not have issues with the application. And staff is recommending approval of the application subject to the same conditions that were approved in 2012, with the exception that we've modified the end date to August 5th, 2022. And with that, I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Garros. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Garros? Commissioner?
Now, I know in the original agreement, there was three 10-day business periods that they could do the work. Were they doing those at all during that time frame?
We need to ask the applicant if that has occurred.
Welcome if you'd like to come forward and just identify yourself for the record.
Members of the commission, Dan Schleck, I'm the attorney for the owner of Quarry Properties LLC. With respect to what you're referring to, yes, the work was done during those 10-day periods, so
Okay. And yet no complaints have come in?
no complaints.
Okay.
Additional questions? Commissioner?
I'm just curious, it says you have to remove everything if there's a flood. Has that been a problem at all? Seems like it's been flooded most of the summer down there, but maybe that doesn't affect you guys.
It actually really doesn't affect us much because there's some higher ground toward the river, so.
Okay.
Okay, additional questions? Commissioner John?
Do you think you'll be using the site all the way up till 2022? Or is it?
There is a high demand for this, recycled material. And so it kind of depends on how much road construction takes place because, we only work as hard as people are tearing up roads. So there's a good chance we will, yeah, depending on how many projects MnDOT has going and some of those things.
Commissioner Henderson?
I have a question for Deb. The August 5th, 2022, I thought the memo stated June 22nd.
The reason that we put August 5th is the city council will be, this will go to city council on August 5th.
Okay.
So we just continued it for, the period of time
Okay.
from the council date.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Additional questions either for Ms. Garros or for the applicant? All right, thank you. I think we'll
Thank you.
open the public hearing then at 6:37 PM. If there's anyone who'd like to speak to this item, feel free to come forward and identify yourself for the record. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 6:37. Commissioners, discussion, additional questions, motion? What's your pleasure?
I would like to ask the applicant another question.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
another question for the
Yeah,
applicant. We're sorry.
It just occurred to me as you sat down, of course.
Hopefully you're wearing a Fitbit today.
Yeah.
Get my steps in.
There you go.
Commissioner Henderson.
So are you gonna have to ask again in the future to get this extended one more time? Or what will happen after August 5th, 2022?
Madam Commissioner, it kind of relates back to what Commissioner John asked about. It all depends on how much demand there is for this material. I mean, if demand continues the way it is now, we'll probably likely ask for it to be extended. But if projects stop, there may be no need for this. And I mean, it's really hard to predict the future at this point because it kind of depends on how much road construction's going on.
Okay. So you could stop earlier than August 5th as well?
If there's no demand for the material.
Okay. So then, Deb,
Oh, yeah.
so Deb, if I remember correctly, in the previous memo, when this was presented in 2012, was there stipulation that they could ask for a second or for an extension? Should there be an extension in here as well then, just in case if they need to extend?
There wasn't. I
Okay.
think they usually just did, do the one-time extension. Part of the issue is the whole Minnesota River Quadrant and kind of the time frame of when various things will be happening out
Okay.
there.
Okay.
All the way from the landfill, the quarry has just received concept approval to extend their time frame for quarrying and do additional quarrying, and landfill is looking at the same. So when they come back, at 2022, there would be a time to evaluate the time frame, and it very well could be a request to extend at that point in time as well. They're not ever limited to that.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just, it was anticipated at the time that they likely would come in, so that's why it was included.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Sure.
We'll let you get seated and then we'll ask another, no. Additional comments, questions, or I would entertain a
Sure.
motion. Teach you to sit closer.
I watched the,
Commissioner John.
excuse me, I watched the 2012 hearings this morning just to hear what went on, and there was a lot of talk about noise complaints, and the gentleman from Bloomington came up and he talked about it. And seeing that there's no, there hasn't been any complaints at all, it's hard to say that there's any reason to block them from moving forward with this extension. That's my 10 cents on it anyway.
I would agree. I mean, it just seems very, very cut and dried. I appreciate Deb's last explanation on the timeline. This is an area that could have some changes in the near future or in the future, and so that review is kind of an important thing, but it's also got some limited uses for that type of land. So I think this is a no-brainer.
Yes.
If, I would entertain a motion if someone would like to make one, or further discussion. Not trying to silence debate.
I would like to make a motion that the
Commissioner Henderson.
Planning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the application for PUD amendment for an IUP to temporarily allow outdoor storage and processing of concrete in the floodplain at 1001 Black Dog Road, and with the following 9 conditions stated in the memo.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, and that will go to the City Council on August 5th at 5:30 PM. All right, that brings us to item 4, which is a public hearing for 5337 Properties LLC for an interim use permit to allow vehicles to be parked on an unpaved surface, rezoning from B4 Highway Commercial to B4 Planned Unit Development and Concept Stage PUD for the phased development of the Park Chrysler Jeep properties located at 1408 Highway 13 West. Ms. Garros, you're back.
Thank you, yes. For this application, there are 7 different properties that are affiliated with the site now. They've been developed separately and then acquired over the years. So there are a number of properties in various stages of development, et cetera. And the applicant has been working on a concept to look at fully developing the property at some point in the future. They did come in with applications, I believe, back in 2014, and then ended up withdrawing them because they didn't know quite where the property lines would be for a future plat and what the plans were. Knowing this, staff is working with the applicant and advised them that we thought there might be a way that would be mutually beneficial for both parties to deal with our city code requirements and then also what they would like to do, and just to have everything on notice. So that's why the application is before you this evening. The subject site, as I indicated, is made up of 7 different properties, which are shown in the hatched pattern on the plan to the left. And then to the right, you can see that the northern part of the site is not developed, it's vacant. Part of these properties were once owned by the city of Burnsville, and then have been since purchased by the applicant. There has been some soils corrections and soils work that's been done on the properties. Part of that was done in conjunction with the city of Burnsville back when the Highway 13 and County Road 5 interchange was installed. So it was kind of a win-win situation to allow that to occur, which also gave the opportunity for soils corrections for the site. And the applicant has then since also been working on building up a berm on that basically separates the north and the south. The southern part of the site is primarily developed. We have different buildings that are located on the property. There are 4 different buildings. And then what they are asking for is part of the site, which we'll show in just a minute, but basically along this north property line and through here has not been blacktopped. It's hard surface. It's, like gravel or sand that it's been driven on for quite some time. So what they would like to do is to be able to continue to use that to park vehicles on until such a time as they get to the actual development of the entire site, including an addition to the main dealership building. So as we indicated, the site has 7 different parcels, a total of almost 12 acres, so it's a fairly large site. In this drawing, or plan, if you will, we've got this small building, which is the first building that was constructed on the site back in the late 60s, and this is basically what that building looks like today. Then there's the dealership building in this location. And in phase 1 of their development, they talk about doing an addition basically to the west side of this primary building. And I'll show you that in a moment. Then there is another small building which is used for their basically used vehicle sales. And then yet one more lot to the west is the car wash, which has been also in existence for some number of years and was acquired by the applicant some number of years ago. So basically what they're requesting is, because they don't know exactly where their development is going to take place, primarily for the future building that they contemplate on this lot and where that dividing line will be, they've requested for some time frame to allow this unpaved area to be used for vehicle displays for a period of time, anywhere from 2 to 5 years. What staff has done is we've just recommended allowing up to 5 years for the project to take place. The reason that what is kind of driving this is something that we've seen with other car dealerships. The business has changed so that the manufacturers are now requiring the dealers to hold all the inventory on their sites. So there's an expanded need for inventory, and this dealership is no different from that. The area, all of the area to the south is paved. All of this area in through here is all paved. It's just this northern part of the site, generally in this location. So it's something that is not visible really from the public. And even as you're driving by, you can't see it because the area slopes down to DuPont Avenue to the right. And we don't see an issue from a staff perspective of allowing that to continue for a short period of time. But then in exchange, the applicant is providing for a concept planned unit development, which is something, there's not an actual right or permit that goes along with the concept planned unit development, but rather the intent of that is to show kind of the time frame, so the general parameters for future development, and then once we get to when they're actually going to develop, which would be the next 2 to 5 years, they would come in with a development stage, plan unit development. That would all get reviewed, a very detailed review, and then at the same time they would plat the properties. So all the properties would then ultimately be replatted into 2 lots. This is the concept plan that is part of the plan unit development approval. The area in black is kind of that area where there is, part of it anyway, in this area where it is not currently blacktopped. There is a small exterior storage area that was approved, I believe, back in the last 10 to 15 years in this area that's utilized. But primarily, you basically have the existing car wash, the used vehicle inventory. And in phase 1, this is the dealership, and they're looking at potential addition. I believe it's about 8,000 square feet to the main dealership building. And then some small changes into the parking lot just associated with this part of the development. In phase 2, which is the northerly piece, that is a proposal then to construct a large office warehouse facility. In addition to that, they've got the primary parking for that facility would be located on the east, north, and west sides of the building. but they are also showing areas for proof of parking, again, for inventory, both in this area and then, then the northeast part of the site, and also additional inventory that would be in this part of the project site itself. In terms of the overall concept plan, staff does not have any particular issues or problems. There are a couple of things that we are suggesting be looked at. One of the things is that they are showing a trail easement along the top part of the property here that may not be needed. The city, since they've been working on this for the past few years, the city just approved the 2040 comprehensive plan, and in that is our trail plan, master plan, and that no longer had a trail located in this. So that may be something that when this comes in for future development stage review and plat, they would look at that further, and likely that may not be a condition that would be needed at that point in time. The engineering department has reviewed the plan, and their primary comments are, again, at the time that we deal with development stage, PUD, and the actual site plans, that there is going to be a need for more detailed civil engineering work, surveying, and that type of thing, so that is identified. One of the other items that was included when this site was used for the soil storage and reclamation, it was wooded before that. So in the application was a joint application between the city of Burnsville and the applicant to do that soil work. At that point in time, they did identify what the woodland valuation was for the property, and there would be a need for reforestation of, I believe, about $13,000. Usually that's done at the time of development and incorporated in the landscape plan, and or if there's not enough of the value in the landscape plan, they can also pay that difference. So that's something that we've identified, and that would be something carried forward from a previous application. And this is just the information. This roughly gives you the area where the trees were, and they needed to be taken out for the project. And these are the sites that were used for the soils work and reclamation project here a couple of years ago. So with that, the recommendation from staff is to consider approval of the interim use permit, which would allow them to park their vehicles on the unpaved portion of the site, just that site that's identified just north of their parking lot, if you will. And that would be available for up to the next 5 years to, again, August 5th, 2024. And then in addition to that, we've got some other conditions that we've identified, and these are things to primarily relate to in the future when the development stage and the plat come in. These are some additional considerations that will need to be evaluated at that point in time. That includes the future trail. It includes a date for the pavement to be installed, whether or not, or depending on what phase they do. We do want to make sure that the area that's unpaved is actually paved within 5 years, and that the reforestation requirements are met or addressed at the time of development. Number 8, the civil engineering drawings, that those types of details will be evaluated. Number 9 is a general condition relating to, at the time that they submit the application, all agencies such as Lower Minnesota Watershed District and any other applicable agencies, their permit approvals would need to be obtained at that point in time. And then number 10 would be an ALTA survey at the time of the development stage PUD. And the reason that that is identified is because it's a little bit more detailed than a standard certificate of survey. It actually corresponds to a title opinion or title work and shows the location of all the various easements and different items that are associated with all of those various parcels, where they are and what documents are recorded. So with that, I will stand for questions. And Mr. Dworsky is here and his engineer, so if you have questions of them, they're here as well.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions for Ms. Garros? Commissioner John?
So there is some kind of condition in our city code, what have you, that the used, or the cars need to be parked on a paved surface?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that for aesthetics, or is that? what's the reason
It's a
behind it?
requirement that the city's had for decades, and we just require vehicles, when you're parking vehicles, that they be on a paved surface. We did do an amendment to the ordinance a year or so ago that allows certain temporary type conditions where you can have an unpaved surface, but not if it's going to be something on a permanent basis. So all of our, even a single-family home, for instance, you do have to have a hard surface on your driveway. And the same goes for commercial industrial properties.
So, can I ask, so for this, for us to do an amendment or allow for them to park on a non-paved surface, does that begin a slippery slope, is my concern.
Certainly.
Other property owners have had to do something where they had to move, I know there's a bunch of inventory at the mall, for instance, where they haven't been able to park it on the property, so, is that a concern at all that staff looked at?
In this case, we think that this is a good way to deal with this, because we do know that they are working towards a solution. We have done joint applications in the recent past for the property, and we feel that within a 5-year time frame that will be workable. The applicant actually has indicated in their paperwork that the paving part of it would probably be between 2 to 3 years. We just extended the 5 years so that everything is consistent with also bringing in the PUD. The other element of this that is a very positive benefit for the city is having that concept PUD in place, because then everybody knows what the ultimate objective is. What will happen when that development stage PUD comes in is we'll be able to memorialize all of the existing conditions that may not meet the current ordinance. We've done that traditionally. And then in addition to that, we know what the proposed improvements are going to be, and getting those platted, and the buildings that they are suggesting are all positive. And this will just put everything on record, if you will.
Additional questions for Ms. Garros?
Can I ask them?
You can, Commissioner John.
So, how long has these vehicles been parked off on the non-paved sites thus far? Is this a new thing because of the inventory having to be on site, or?
This has occurred on and off. It's a difficult situation to deal with, is because really all they need to do to comply is to move the vehicles. And then the condition is it's addressed. And then when you move vehicles back out there, then you have to start over again with the code enforcement process, and it's just a difficult situation to deal with. So rather than try to continue that process of code enforcement and bring it back and whatnot, what we wanted to do is to try to work with the applicant to get something that is out there and will be a permanent solution. And that's why the application has been submitted.
Okay.
Additional questions for Ms. Garros? Or any for the applicant?
I have a couple for the applicant.
If the applicant would like to come forward, we will fire off some questions. If you could come forward and identify yourself for the record. Welcome.
Thank you. David Dworsky.
Welcome. Commissioner John.
The question I have is that this has been remediated since 2013. It's 5 years later or 6 years later, still nothing has happened. Why do we need another 2 to 3 years to get it
Great
within
question.
code?
Well, and again, thank you for the opportunity tonight. It was a 2.5, almost 3 year project to mine 200,000 square yards of peat out of that property, and then pull in another 300,000 yards to build it up. And we've had a number of interested parties that have been ready to go in terms of, office warehouse, that kind of stuff. The problem is, yes, we are ongoing, we are continuing to try and find a suitable tenant. The problem is, in today's world with office warehouse, it's really, really hard to get your construction costs out of the project if it is mostly warehouse. And the interested parties that we've had to date have just wanted mostly warehouse, as opposed to office and warehouse, or a good percentage of that office to mitigate the, the building expense right now, because building today is just absolutely unbelievable. And it's another problem we're faced with the expansion of our store as well. Yes, we need it desperately. However, when you look at the bids that are coming in for the development, you just kind of think, twice about entering into that expense. But we are growing, and we certainly need a bigger facility for our service. And if, in fact, like Deb was saying, if that project gets done sooner than the Phase 2 project, the blacktop issue would be taken care of at that time. Because that area is really, the area that's in question is really for the dealership parking, not for any future development down at the other site.
And you're planning to sell off the other site once it's fully developed?
No, because it would either be one of two things. It would either be a nice investment for us, or we may, use it as well. We have right now 12,000 square feet that we're leasing just down the street. So there is, a need for storage for us as well. So, it could be that space. But then again, like I said, when you look at what the existing warehouse space is leasing for versus what we would need for this space, we're actually better off just keeping the 12,000 square feet leased down the street. So it's a frustrating situation, but I think, as time goes by, it will even itself out, and we'll be good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
I just have a comment. I think it's a pretty nice solution in terms of the overall concept. And I like how that the development to the north has potential overflow parking for storage of vehicles for the property to the south. It seems like it fits in there pretty nice. So.
Yeah, and a few years ago, as Deb was saying, we worked hand in hand with the city in regard to getting that peat out of there, because quite frankly, it was just it was a little small forest, but quite frankly, it was not really anything to beautify the area, or for that matter, be any way, shape, or form a functional piece of land to build on. And we had bids at the time of $1.5 million, $2 million just to take care of the soil. And quite frankly, we were able to do it for far less. We still have a huge investment in it, but again, when you look at what we have in the soil and then what the building costs are going to be in the rest, it's just not penciling out at this moment in time, but we'll get there.
Okay, additional questions? If not, I'm going to open the public hearing then at 7:03 p.m. If there's anybody who'd like to speak on this, please come forward and identify. Thank you. Anyone? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 7:03 p.m. Commissioners, additional questions, comments, discussion? What's your pleasure? Commissioner John?
It's nothing against Park Jeep. I think they're a great company. It's a wonderful place. My fear is the slippery slope. Other car dealerships saying, well, they can do it, why can't we, sort of a thing. That is my biggest issue here. The reason for the code, it's beyond me. I don't know why we have to have a hard top other than aesthetics, something along those lines, but somebody knows, and that's my sticking point in all this, is not having the blacktop up on the third area, because other dealerships have to deal with that, and they're gonna have to make arrangements one way or the other.
Additional comments?
I don't know if that Park Jeep has been there for so long that there was a lot of dirt, I think most of the other dealerships are newer, or if there's a new dealership coming in, they're they're gonna wanna comply, they're not gonna wanna be parking there. So I don't know that that's gonna be, I'd be surprised if that was a big concern, but I could be totally wrong too, so.
And I would highlight that, I mean, Deb's earlier point too about the, helping resolve the enforcement issues, combined with the PUD, aspect of it is a huge benefit, I think, because I frankly think it's an elegant solution to, a number of converging issues, here. I understand what you're saying in terms of we have a lot of car dealerships in the city of Burnsville, so that's an important consideration, but I think to me, the public benefit here is, outweighs that concern, frankly, but. Additional comments, questions? All right, I would entertain a motion then. Oh, there we go. Oh,
I'm gonna give
Commissioner
this a
Wong,
try.
good work.
I move-
First motion.
First motion, I move that the planning commission recommend to the city council approval of the interim use permit to allow vehicle parking on unpaved area of the site, rezoning the site from B4 to B4 PUD and concept stage PUD for phase development of the property, including building addition to dealership building, new construction of office warehouse, paving and site improvements with the following items to be considered and addressed as part of the development stage PUD, the following listed 10 items.
You don't want to read all those? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. And that will also be on the city council agenda on August 5th at 5:30 PM. Thank you very much, and I do want to just thank the applicant too, because I know you'd mentioned some of the earlier, the peat issues and so forth, some of your previous work with the city. We really appreciate that, so thank you very much. I believe that just leaves us to updates.
Yes.
Ms. Garros.
Just some quick updates for the commissioners. All of the items that you saw at your last meeting went to city council. They were all approved as recommended by planning commission. And the other big item is that we may be losing.
Yes,
our-
I have an
our
announcement,
chair.
although I have yet to resign. I anticipate that I probably will be resigning before when is the next meeting for the planning commission?
it
I was thinking it was the
will be
5th, it's the week after.
The 12th, August
Okay.
12th.
I've got a new job and will be relocating to Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. The new job starts August 5th. It'll be a slow relocation, so I will be we'll be discussing some transition stuff. But I want to thank you all. I know several of you are new, and I appreciate your confidence in me last meeting and electing me chair, but I apologize for the timeline. This certainly wasn't what I was envisioning. This is a great experience. I thank you all for your service on the planning commission. At times this seems like tedious work, but it's been very rewarding. I feel like I know more about the soils of Burnsville than anyone deserves to know, So with that, anything else that anyone would like to
Nothing else from staff?
report? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:08. Nearly.